Hello, everybody. It's Glass Half Dead here, and today I have with me the person that took a basically unheard of kill team to LVO and managed to get pretty damn high. So, who do I have with me today?
Uh, I'm Chris. I did take Gellerpox Infected to LVO. I don't know if I describe myself as getting pretty damn high, but I did make it to the semifinals, and so pretty happy about that. And enjoyed my LVO experience. It was my first time going to LVO or really any major tournament, so pretty was a good time.
That's great. So, exactly, Gellerpox infected. Before LVO, they had basically been, as far as I'm aware, written off. They were not really considered a team, obviously because of the way they were released in Rogue Trader. And also, just I'd never really heard much talk about them. And on a personal note, I'm not really a fan of Nurgle, so I never really thematically jived with them. And with that said, we kind of come to our first question. Obviously, we're going to get to the LVO talk later. That's going to come because I think everyone's quite interested just to hear about how a top table player views the game, sees their games, etc. But first, I'm very curious. What are the Gellerpox? Because I've forgotten all the rules for them.
The Gellerpox Infected are an all melee team that most people have not played against or played as or really know that much about. But I think that they have a lot of interesting things going for them. Quick
Well,
side note.
yeah, go.
I actually do agree with you a little bit on not always loving the Nurgle theme. I'm more of a Tzeentch Slanesh type of guy myself, but
Sure.
the Gellerpox models, the sculpts themselves, I think are just incredibly well done, and
Oh,
so
I
I was able
agree
to
completely. Yeah, they're
yeah,
beautiful models, 100%. But thematically, just not my thing, which is a real shame. Like, if they had been any other Chaos God, I'd have been two thumbs up.
hey,
Two thumbs
real,
up.
you know what? Real shame for you. Uh,
Yeah,
gotta overcome that when you've got something interesting. Sorry,
very
you were
true.
going to ask a question.
Yeah, so actually, I was going to ask, as you just mentioned, oh, we haven't got to the rules yet. I'm going to let you run away with that in a second. But you just quickly mentioned that not many people really know what the Gellerpox do. How much do you think that kind of affected your ability to play them and obviously also almost win the tournament with them? Do you think that element of surprise is a big thing?
Absolutely. I think people prepped for particular teams. I mean, everyone plays a lot of practice games if they can, or plays against their friends, whatever their friends are playing. So, popular teams, even if they're not meta, and particular teams that are seen as meta are what people tend to play their practice games against. And when people come up against an entirely new team, people tend to be a little bit hesitant. They play more conservatively than they should. They're less willing to take risks. I myself had never played against Harlequins, as crazy as that may sound,
Mm,
and realized I was falling into the same pit traps that I had been trying to push other people into by playing a relatively unknown team.
sure.
So I definitely think it gave me an advantage, and I tried to exploit that advantage as much as I could by pushing people in the areas where they had been cautious by just going all in those areas and punishing them for their mistakes.
Yep, that makes sense. Quick follow up again, quickly before we get to the rules. Do you think that after this interview, it means you will no longer be able to win a tournament because you've given away all your secrets?
Only if you become incredibly popular. I mean, don't get me wrong, you've got subscribers, you've got a following, you've got good content, Andy, but if you become popular enough that your videos are changing the meta by themselves, then you know what? In that case, I'll I, I'll just have to live with that.
Okay, well, we can only hope. I mean, certainly my mum likes to watch my videos, and if that's not a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is. So, genuinely, I don't really know who or what the Gellerpox are. They got some big guys, they got some small things, they got some guys in the middle. I don't know what any of them do. Take it away.
Yeah. So the Gellerpox infected have a lot of different options, and they're most interesting in that they can field an incredibly elite team or an incredibly just weak horde team or anything in between. And that flexibility is very interesting from my perspective. That said, they are an almost entirely all melee team, and so you have to be, that has to be your thing when if you're willing to play the Gellerpox infected. So starting with what everyone thinks of when they think of the Gellerpox infected, the big guys, the Nightmare Hulks.
Yes.
Also, the sergeant of the Nightmare Hulks is known as a Gnasher Screamer, so I may refer to them as that, I or as my big boys. But they are incredibly
Just
expensive
to
models.
clarify there quickly, so that would be the standard guy is a nightmare. What were they called?
Nightmare Hulk.
Nightmare Hulk, and then the the guy that will cost slightly more points but will also have a better stat line, but in the same data sheet is the Gnasher Screamer.
Gnasher Screamer. He actually
Okay.
costs the same amount, but he
Oh, he's
gets
just
one
better.
extra attack, and he gets to reroll ones on wound rolls.
So Gnasher Screamer OP. Okay, continue.
Well, in the same way that a sergeant is OP, and a I'm blanking Hecatrix is OP.
They cost more
Uh,
points. Or at least the
Sometimes.
Hectrix certainly does. I don't know about Adeptus Astartes because they're a trash tier team. Let's keep going before anybody calls me out on that.
Wow. Wow, hot takes from Andy over here. Okay.
Never played
So,
them. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
uh I don't disagree, but So, anyways, so the Nightmare Hulks are what people really think of when they think about Gellerpox infected. Expensive, big models, 31 points, and the thing about them is they are incredibly slow, but they're hard to take down, and they're very good in melee. Not going to get too much into like particular stat details. Suffice to say, they're probably the tankiest model in the game, and if they get in the melee, they don't always hit, but when they do, they hit like a massive truck. So they those but 4-inch movement. 4-inch movement means that it often, unless you're doing things like using a veteran advance in most kill team, not necessarily arena,
Sure.
unless you're using things like a veteran advance, you're not going to get them into combat until at least round two, possibly round three if you fail your charge round two. So that's something worth noting. The the second part of the Gellerpox infected are the Gellerpox mutants. So these guys are kind of like Zangors. They've got your 5-up invulnerable save, although they're also disgustingly resilient, and they're a little bit slower than Zangors, and they can throw frag grenades. They also, if they roll a 6 on their invulnerable save in melee, they deal a mortal wound back to the attacker. So
Okay. It's
a lot of
nice.
cool things going for them. I use them as my leader, and I also use them to open doors on arena because the bugs can't. Anything that's
Right.
a vermin which is large portions of the Gellerpox infected,
Okay.
is not infantry and cannot open doors. So
That's
you end up
the swarm, aren't they? Swarm instead of infantry, or is it vermin, or is it different
they're
things?
they're vermin.
Okay.
There is a swarm rule, but what it means is that a particular unit, the Eye Stinger swarm, is immune to flesh wounds.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Right.
the vermin rule means none of the 3 bugs are infantry, and it also
Yes.
means that it is easier to take them out of action rather than give them a flesh wound.
Okay.
So while I love the bugs, they can't open doors. So if I don't want to have my Nightmare Hulk just standing there for round 1 and then having to move round 2 and not even getting into combat until round 3,
Yeah.
I need mutants or the glitchling demons to open doors.
Okay.
So the mutants have one other rule, and this is one that I think as tournaments start to run arena and as campaigns run arena, I think it will have a very big impact. I might even go so far as to say that in arena, it is the best tactic in the game. And I
Big
know that's
words. Big
Those
words.
are
Okay.
Hear me out. Hear me out. So the Geller shift, it costs 2 CP, and you can deep strike a Gellerpox mutant somewhere on the board, more than 4 inches from an enemy. On regular kill team, I actually don't use it that often. Maybe
Okay.
if someone has left an unguarded objective, I might use it to seize that objective. But if you're trying to get, with a primarily melee unit, yeah, they can throw frag grenades, but they don't hit very often, and frag grenades have no AP and 1 damage, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, if you're trying to get a primarily melee unit, deep strike it behind enemy lines, and they can't charge that same turn, they're just standing there, maybe behind cover, ready to get shot to death or
Yeah.
countercharged.
Yeah.
So instead, where I don't really use it in regular kill team, in arena, it's going to be super useful. Here's why. In arena, walls and doors, closed doors, block line of sight, but they also block line of measurement. You
Yeah.
can't measure, for example, auras through doors. You can't measure, even though the walls and doors are less than an inch thick, if two things are basically base to base contact with the wall or the door, they're not within combat. You don't measure
Yeah.
anything
Correct.
through walls or closed doors, which means you also don't measure deep strike distance requirements through closed doors.
Yes.
So if you get first turn, you can't do it on second turn as effectively because it costs 2 CP, so you can't decisive move it. But if you get first turn, you can teleport your Gellerpox mutant, hopefully not your leader, maybe a specialist, across the board next to one of the doors leading out of the enemy's deployment zone.
Yeah.
On a lot of maps, that means that if they can't deal with that Gellerpox mutant, they can't contest half the map. Now, the reason this is so effective is a couple of different reasons. The first is doors in Kill Team are small enough that a 25 millimeter base model can prevent other 25 millimeter base models, if it's in the center, from going around to either side. That's pylons, move in, charges. None of
Yeah.
those can move around it until that model is dead, unless they have fly. So Tau and Gellerpox will be able to get around it. Uh,
Right.
so
Yeah.
uh, the other reason why it's so interesting, the obvious. If you're within an inch of a door, you can prevent someone from opening it on a 5-up. So you have a 1 in 3 chance of keeping that door closed, in which case then that just further delays the number of rounds before they
Yeah.
can start playing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
game. Then the other thing, though, remember when I said that you can't measure combat through doors? So you can, if someone placed a model right next to a door in preparation for opening that door, and you drop your Gellerpox mutant on right on the other side of that door, within 1 inch of that model, they're not in combat, and you can deep strike there. But in event that they open the door as you're trying to stop it, then suddenly you are in combat the moment that door opens.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
against a lot of teams that don't want to be in combat turn one, in blocking off their choke point that lets them leave, that's a problem. But even for like melee teams, like even if they've got a plague marine with a flail right there and can kill your Gellerpox mutant, it still means that
Yeah.
no one can leave that door round one. So
It's 100% blocking the enemy team for a turn. Even if you lose a model, you don't care. That's what
eight
it was meant
points,
to do. Yeah.
8 points and 2 CP to delay the other players starting the game on half the map.
It's a it's a
You
bargain. Yeah.
guarantee a 2 point lead on objectives on most maps.
Yeah.
So and probably it's good for secondaries as well. So
Yeah.
in that manner, you can with it's a tactic that can basically give you high odds of winning almost any game on the right maps. It only were
Sure.
I looked. I would only use it on 5 of the 8 arena matched play missions. The other
Okay.
3 are too close quarters for it to be worth it. In those situations, you'd want to just open the door and advance a normal
Okay.
model.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
because you don't need to teleport across the map if you can just advance to get there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
on about a little more than half the missions, it could be
Yeah.
incredibly powerful.
Okay.
So those are Gellerpox mutants. The rest of the Gellerpox squad are all what I lovingly refer to as trash, but
Good.
they're my
Yeah.
trash, and they're also the core of the team.
Right.
People think that when they think of Gellerpox, they think of the Nightmare Hulks. They think,
Yes.
ah, those things are the only things with real kill potential on the team.
Yes.
That's the core of the team. I have to deal with that. I have to, if I play that team, I have to focus on that. But the problem is, if you're paying 31 points for a model and a game only goes to 4 rounds and you probably can't get into combat round one, you're at best killing what, one model per round, three models against a lot of teams. You're not going to make your points back. So, plus, as one model, it can't really hold objectives by itself in against teams with more models. So, the Nightmare Hulk, I think, is good at trying to win in an area of the board, or dealing with key threats on the other team if they've got a Plague Marine or a Lictor or like a plasma gun, like
Yeah.
getting in
Yeah.
there and wrecking those. But
And it's
I would
sorry, they're on a 40 mil base, are they?
something like that. They're not as
Okay.
big as, yeah, they're bigger. I believe so.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like looking over at my Demon Princes, looking back at my
No.
Gellerpox,
Yeah.
trying
Try
to
to
trying
figure
to
it out by size. Like,
yeah. So the Nightmare Hulks, I think, are best as a distraction Carnifex
yeah.
and as a counter to deal with whatever plan the other person is trying to bring. They're a spanner you can throw in the works. But they're not the core of the team. And if you try and rely on them as the core of the team, you're going to lose. And that's why people have been losing with Gellerpox. That's why people considered Gellerpox to be a low tier team. The
Sure.
way to win is by making trash work for you. So the remaining four types of Gellerpox have two strength and two toughness. There's one that has three strength, but for the most part, they're very weak.
Yeah.
They don't hit a lot. When they hit, they don't do a lot. They have almost no kill potential, and that's why people have written them off. And I think that's wrong. So let's start with my favorites: the Eye Stinger Swarms. These are incredibly fast models. 10-inch move. They have fly, and they have a gimmick. Well, all the Gellerpox have a gimmick, but their gimmick is they are -1 to hit all the time, and
Okay.
they are immune to flesh wounds. If you
Okay.
roll the injury test on them and you get a 1 or a 2, boom, nothing happens. It's as if they made their save. On the other hand, they do have, all the bugs have +1 to take them out of action. So, trade-offs. The Ice Stinger Swarms are my favorite because even though they have no kill potential, there are all sorts of what I call movement shenanigans that you can do with them.
Okay.
So, one thing that's interesting, people who play a lot of 40k and Kill Team often think that the FAQ about charging and fly from 40k applies to Kill Team. But in 40k, moving and charging are different phases, which is why
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
FAQ exists. In Kill Team, they're the same phase. So you can charge with fly and ignore vertical distances and fly over other enemy models,
Yes.
which surprises a lot of people. People are like, wait a second, what? But charging, that was FAQ'd only in 40k.
Yeah.
So they're good for charging over a combat into things that are waiting behind the combat,
Yeah.
ready to
Sure.
shoot, ready to
Yeah.
countercharge, and all of a sudden they're locked up in combat.
Yeah.
They're great for one of the things that in regular Kill Team, not Arena, that I do is I will fly them on top of buildings or behind walls, and then but relatively close horizontally to enemies. And so then next
Mm.
round, even though they can't be shot, I'm only rolling looking for 3 inches, 4 inches,
Sure.
and I can tie up large portions of the enemy team with them.
Yeah.
I also use them since they have a 10-inch move. They're one of the fastest units in the game, and
Yes. Yeah.
so if you advance them, you're looking at 11 to 16 inches, sorry, 11 to 14 inches across the board. That's enough to, on short deployments, get basically anywhere. I use those to
Yeah.
contest objectives on round one in the enemy deployment zone sometimes if I think I can get away with it. But
Yeah.
the most important thing in regular Kill Team for them is probably that with their -1 to hit all the time, that stacks with being in cover or stacks with distance, you can get them to be -2 to hit and very close to an enemy.
Yeah.
If an enemy has a Melta or a plasma gun and you fly an Ice Stinger Swarm across the board 3 inches from them, but behind like a little fence or something like that, or
Mm.
partially peeking out from a wall, then they know If they don't deal with that now, then I will charge their Melta. I will not fail that charge. They only have a 1 in
Yeah,
6 chance of killing me, and then their Melta is tied up for the rest of the game. They
yeah,
have to deal with that. But their shots are those are low percentage shots.
yeah,
3 up goes to 5 up, 4 up goes to 6 up. No one wants to be making those shots, but they have to. And every shot that goes into that and misses, or even if it kills it, like I expect to lose some on
yeah,
round 1 every game, or if it kills it, are shots that are not going into my Nightmare Hulk that's lumbering its way up the table, or my other bugs that are sitting on objectives. And in that way, I'm both outscoring the enemy
yeah.
on points and getting my big guys ready to go deal with whatever threats they're presenting.
Sure.
So those I think are the primary tools for dealing with shooting teams, although they can in a pinch be used. Just feed them to a scary melee unit every round, whatever combat or zealot specialist.
Just to clarify quickly, when it comes to the swarms or the vermin, uh,
Yes.
and the door rules in arena, can vermin? We know they can't open doors because they're not infantry, but can they block someone from opening doors, or do you also have to be infantry to do that?
Any model can block someone from opening a door.
Sure.
The restriction is on only infantry can choose to open or close a door.
Okay.
So, but if you advance an Ice Stinger Swarm, 10 plus inches across the board
Yeah.
and sit outside someone's door, you can try and roll that 5 up, keep that
Okay.
door closed.
Okay.
So, still very useful on arena, even though they can't
Yeah.
open doors.
Okay.
Favorite unit in the game, in case that's not already clear.
No,
So,
a lot of people will see, that low stat unit and say, I'd rather take something that can actually do something. And what they mean is kill something. But obviously, if you want to really be good at kill team, as I think it's becoming more and more apparent, you have to. It's all about placement and positioning, and all you need for that is movement. You don't need to be able to do anything after you've moved.
yeah. I think they're the best 5 points you can spend in the game. I'd much rather have one of those than a naked guardsman.
Sure. Yeah.
So, so the next model from uh, Gellerpox that I'll talk about. Let's switch away from the bugs for a moment. Let's talk
Okay.
about the equivalent of a Nurgling. It's a Gellerpox demon. It's a glitchling.
Okay.
The glitchlings are similar to the Icinger swarms in one respect. They have -1 to be shot at. The Icinger swarms are -1 all the time, but the glitchlings are -1 to be shot at. And so they're fairly slow. They're only 5-inch move, but they are disgustingly resilient but squishable against damage 1 attacks. And
Right.
-1 to be shot means they're great for parking on objectives in your deployment zone and just
Yeah.
sitting them there the entire game. And if necessary, you move them into combat to help shore up your defenses there. But they're
Okay.
great objective holders. So
Awesome.
uh, in my favorite games, I can peek, some of their hands behind a extruding wall or cover or scatter train or something,
Right.
and all of a sudden, regular 12-inch rapid fire shots from across the board are -3 to hit them, and it's
Oof.
great.
Yeah.
So though in that way, I don't even though I'm charging most of my models all the way up across the table, I'm still holding my backline. The I think that's mostly it for the glitchlings. They have almost no kill potential in melee. They don't have a
Okay.
gimmick for dealing damage. Oh,
Sure.
Ice Stinger Swarms. Their gimmick for dealing damage. If you roll a 6 on the hit wound, you skip the wound roll, which is great because they have strength 2.
Ooh. Okay.
So
So that's basically a. Well, the enemy still gets an armor save, don't they? I was going to say that's
yeah, an
almost a
armor save
mortal
with no
wound,
rent.
but no.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Armor
Okay.
save with no rent.
Yeah. Okay.
Even with their gimmick, in the best of situations, they're still not great. But
Orcs are
that's
still
fine.
scared of that, so it's fine.
That's true.
Six up
I'm
is no.
terrified of I'm terrified of orcs. I wound them on 6, and they wound me on 2s, and
Yeah, that's
they
true.
can bring orc boys in almost as big a number against orcs. Well, against orcs, I would have to bring more mutants, and I might even consider bringing 2 hulks instead of 1. But
Interesting.
uh, specific tactics aside,
Yeah.
so that's glitchlings and eye stinger swarms.
Okay.
Next are curse mites.
Right.
I only bring curse mites some of the time. I think I'm going to bring them more often in arena. I bring
Okay.
them whenever I bring 1 Nightmare Hulk. I don't bring them when I bring 2 Nightmare Hulks most of the
Okay.
time. they only cost 4 points, so they're cheaper than the
Okay.
other bugs. But they are not -1 to hit ever. They
Right.
instead their gimmicks are if they roll a 6 to hit, then that's 2 wound rolls, which is not great because you're still looking for fives or sixes. Uh, uh,
Okay. Okay.
the The other thing about them is they can reroll failed charges. So I like them
Okay.
for in arena. I like them for sitting out of line of sight in a hallway, another hallway, or behind a door or something,
Yeah.
and trying to make long bomb charges without having to use tactical reroll.
Sure. Yes. Okay.
So good against flamers. Force the other person to burn that Overwatch tactic
Yep.
on a small 4 point
Yep.
bug, so that then they can't burn that tactic on nice big models that come lumbering in
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Or it ties them up if they don't. So either way, I win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed.
Uh,
Yeah.
the other yeah, I think that's pretty much everything about curse mites. They're good for charges from long ranges, or just getting bodies on the board, but they're really
Okay.
worse than glitchlings and
Sure.
ice stinger swarms. Movement 8, so still fast, not as fast as ice
Yeah.
stinger
Yeah.
swarm.
Yeah.
The final model that I would talk about are the sludge grubs. I don't really use them.
Okay.
They have a pistol and one attack, but the pistol is only 8-inch range, so you're at -1 to hit unless you're almost in melee anyways.
Yeah. Sure.
Their gimmick is that they are if they die in the fight phase, you roll a d6, and on a 6 you deal a mortal wound to an enemy within an inch or something like that.
Okay.
So I don't find them particularly useful. Sometimes I summon them. One thing I will sometimes use them for to try and convince the other person to ready models rather than move them. If when people ready, most people, not always, not top players, but the vast majority of people will say something like, "Wait a second, do you have any models who can shoot?" And if
Yeah.
I normally my answer is no, or I'll say, "Well, these mutants can throw frag grenades," and they're like, "Oh god, oh god." Oh, that's 6 inches. Parked your mutant in your own back line.
Sure. Yeah.
Never
Okay.
mind.
Yeah.
But if I have a sludge grub, then I can say this model that I just moved within is within range and pointing at something. He can shoot, and never mind that it's not going to do anything. I guarantee it's
Sure.
not going to do
Yeah. Yeah.
anything. People will then ready instead of moving.
Is the shot still a strength two, or is it a strength three?
The sludge grub is strength 3, both the
Okay.
shot and their melee. But
Okay.
and I think they have 1 AP on their melee or something like that. So they're not the worst. I just I since they're slow and bugs, I have never really found a good use for them. If I wanted to take a shooting team, I'd play a different team.
No, of course, sure, but at only 3 points, it does sound like they could be used in a
Oh,
particularly.
five
Oh,
points.
5 points. Sorry, I was thinking the other one that was four. Yeah, yeah, okay, right.
Yeah. So
Okay,
taking one means you're taking one less glitchling or one less icing or swarm most of the time.
okay,
And
okay.
for me, I would always rather have lots of models that are -1 to shoot at. If
Yeah,
I'm going up against
no,
enemy
yeah,
melee, I'll take fewer glitchlings and more curse mites so that I can hope to get the charge off rather than them getting the charge off.
sure. It's exactly the same reasoning why orcs generally will take commandos over orc boys, because that -1 to hit is absolutely phenomenal. And it's actually
Yeah.
their only save because a 6-up t-shirt save is may as well just not roll.
Well, hey, if you like orcs having almost no save, you can play Gellerpox Infected because multiple models, or at the very least the Ice Stinger swarms, have a 7-up save.
Ideal, lovely.
So that's I think that's the Gellerpox Infected kill team.
Okay, okay, great. So that's the Gellerpox infected summed up for me. Somebody that knew nothing about Gellerpox, frankly, apart from they had cool big models that even though I bought, I never actually took out of the box and the sprue and have yet to paint.
It's never too late. I'm telling you,
That's true.
Gellerpox. At some point, they're going to be one of the next big things in Arena. That Geller shift tactic.
Yes. Well, a very quick aside. We've obviously had elites announced, and they've said I haven't talked about elites much, but they have said on Games Workshop Facebook page that every single faction is going to get commander options. Every single faction, and that is including, therefore, Elucidian Starstrider and Gellerpox. Do you have any ideas?
I'm 90% confident that they're just going to give multiple faction keywords to
Yeah,
certain models. So
yeah.
I'm
So you
thinking
might share with
maybe,
Nurgle.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, maybe I need to go buy some Blightlord Terminators. I don't own any Nurgle outside of Gellerpox,
Okay.
but
Okay.
maybe I need to get that.
Hmm.
But I'm waiting for the announcement. That said, I would love if they did something totally off the wall, something ridiculous. For example, the friends of the amble, like some of
Yeah.
those worm tunneling worms and
Yep.
stuff, or something similar. Come out with more nurgly monsters or
Yes.
something ridiculous. I would love to see more models like that, and I would absolutely buy stuff like that.
Yeah. My theory is exactly what you just said, where they're just going to give a keyword, either generic chaos or Nurgle. That's kind of the logical choice.
If you can you imagine some of the like generic CSM joining the Gellerpox? Like, you've got this all melee team, and then someone pulls out like an autocannon havoc. Uh, that
Hey,
I don't think they'll do it, but I think it
no,
would be
neither do
hilarious.
I. Thematically, it doesn't quite make sense either, but I don't think that matters. Um, the other options I can see are we get another release, just like Blackstone Fortress got a release of the Commissar, the Crazy Commissar, and the Crazy Ogren guy. That's an awesome thing for any of the Sons of the Abyss. Is it Sons of the Abyss? Something like that.
Servants of the Abyss.
Servants of the Abyss kill team. That's great. So potentially we get, although this is getting really kind of niche, where they would release an expansion for the Rogue Trader expansion, which doesn't quite make sense from a business perspective. But that's possible and it give us new models, or, and this I think is a possibility, they just give a data sheet and it's saying take your Nasher Squig model, whatever. You can now use it with this data sheet.
You've been making orc comparisons all day, and
Did
now
I just say
now
Nasher
you
Squig?
refer to my
No.
my wonderful models as a Nasher Squig.
I've just been reading through the Orc Tactics cards. Sorry. Yes, whatever it is,
Uh,
Blight Spewer, that's a Nurgle thing. What the Nightmare Hulk,
uh,
whatever. One of the Nightmare Hulks can be an
yeah,
elite. There you go.
my Nightmare Hulks.
Exactly.
So maybe we'll get something new, a new data sheet with the same model.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense from Games Workshop's perspective, I think. But okay, let's get back on track and talk about what's coming up next. Okay,
In
before we
at LVO.
jump onto that, but we will
Oh,
jump
sorry.
onto that, I do have a question for you. When it comes to the Gellerpox, do you actually think that they are? I mean, obviously you took them to a tournament. Do you think they are they are the best? They're the most
No,
competitive team? No.
absolutely
Okay.
not.
So in
I
that
think
case, why
in
did you take them?
I think they're really fun. Uh, I think um, I also thought that I could gain a bit of a competitive edge by playing a team that no one has played before.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so people practice against, you know, Death Guard, Nids,
Yeah.
Tau.
Yeah.
People practice, against, the next tier like Harlequins and, Plasma Guard. Well, I guess Plasma Guard is probably top tier ish. But like that, people practice against all the best teams
Yeah.
and scrim against it, and they know what to do. I think really good players can adapt their strategies to a team that they haven't seen before. But I think that most players will struggle to do so.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Fair.
and so I wanted to take advantage of that. I also um, I find it more interesting on a personal level to play a team that I don't believe is like top, like the meta, like the list, and attempt to do well with it. Because for me, I think that I don't go to tournaments to necessarily to win the tournament. I go to tournaments for personal satisfaction of feeling like I have been playing at a competitive level and doing the best job I can.
Sure. So a little bit of a
So
faction hipster.
absolutely,
Yes, me too.
like I
Me
don't want
too.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to play the worst list. I just don't want to play what I believe to be is the single best list. I want to
sure.
play something and I want to go up against the best list and I want to beat it.
Sure, exactly. If you take the best list, you are expected to win, and if you win, it's like, well, yeah, because you had the best list. But if you take the mid-tier list and you get on the top tables, it's like, whoa, what happened there? Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry. Talking about taking a not tip top tier list, you were about to talk about Michael and his Azerani.
Yeah, I think just about everyone had the same reaction when they saw that there was a semifinals round between Asuryani, the first ranked team after going into the semifinals, and
Yeah,
Gellerpox Infected. Like, who was expecting that?
yeah,
I highly, highly, highly recommend actually your video on interviewing Michael about his experiences at LVO. Part one is what I'm referring to, and to summarize part of what I think he said his strategy was, he when talking about Harlequins, he said that often he'll position his units in pairs so that and just accept that the Harlequin will be able to charge, and he'll do it with some other melee teams too.
yeah,
And but the gamble that the Harlequin will only be able to kill one of them, and the other one will then be able to fall back and leave the Harlequin out of position.
yeah,
In that way, you accept losses one round with cheap units. And then leave them exposed and unable to do anything the next round. I would
sure.
say that's basically the same strategy of charging a bunch of fly ice stinger swarms and curse mites in, knowing some of them will die to Overwatch and some of them will die in melee, and then
Yeah,
forcing the enemy shooting units to fall back the next round. Um, and I would say that he had like one or two very powerful shooting units. One
yeah,
that was really good on Overwatch, and one that was really good
yeah.
at just like long range, just like blowing one unit up each round. And that's kind of the same idea I used with my Nightmare Hulks. I think we both got to the semifinals in using similar strategies with the exact opposite type of army, an all shooting list and an all melee list.
Sure, sure.
Uh, so, uh, and that's something that I think when Michael talked about the semifinals, because he won the semifinals so hard that I couldn't implement any of my strategies, he
Yes.
didn't see what strategies I was trying to go for. Because I couldn't do any of them,
Right.
and
Sure. Yeah.
he didn't see that I was trying to do the same thing he was.
Right. Right. Now, before we get into the actual games there, just very specifically on that note, do you think his tactics just beat yours, just outright beat, or was there luck of the dice in that? If you'd gotten
I
first
think
turn, it would have been gone differently, or
I have lots of different thoughts about that game.
okay.
Uh, Very brief summary. Everything went against me. Uh, Dice, I made some mistakes. He made some great plays. I made a lot of mistakes that game. He adapted better to seeing the Gellerpox because it was similar to his practice against Death
Right.
Guard than
Okay.
I did against Asuryani. I was treating them similar to Guard or Tau when really I should have. I simply didn't take into account how good one of his units was against Overwatch and how mobile he
Yes.
was, but especially just how many models he could field.
Sure.
I made, I think, uh, had things, had the dice gone better for me, had the dice were incredibly lucky for him. He killed 41 points from Overwatch in the first two rounds. Uh,
Ouch.
uh,
Well,
yeah, my Nightmare Hulk died to a Melta on Overwatch,
I
and I
remember
also
him
failed all
saying
my
that. Yeah.
charges.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so yeah, the dice went against me, but had the dice been perfectly fair, given the way he was playing and the mistakes I had already made, I suspect he would have won, and by a pretty reasonable amount. Now,
Okay.
that said, if I get the chance for a rematch with him knowing everything he knows about my army and me knowing everything I know about his army, I still think he wins more times than not, but I think I can make a good go of it. I think I could win 45% of the time. His army
Okay.
is just a really bad matchup for mine.
Okay.
And I think Michael is the best kill team player I've ever played against.
Ooh,
Um,
big statement.
like
Okay.
no qualifications. I think he's a better kill team player than the guy who won. I think Miguel
Okay.
is amazing at kill team.
Yep.
Clearly knows his army very well, positioned everything incredibly well. But I think Michael is the single has clean moves, like positions very well. And is able to get to what he thinks is the right answer very quickly. He doesn't have to pause and think about it for too long.
Okay.
And I think he adapts to new situations really well. Um, I have tremendous respect for him as a player.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
So, but uh, yeah, we'll get to that game.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the full rundown, definitely.